On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. He tells me that organized private sector is fully in support of the tax reform introduced by the federal government. He also spoke about the possibility of having a robust economy in the year 2025. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having us once again.
And I think it's safe to say Happy New Year.
Absolutely. Happy New Year.
Well, would you want to give us a recap of activities that happened in the year 2024? And what would be your expectations for 2025? That would be the expectations of the organized private sector.
Well, 2024, quite an interesting year. An interesting year from all perspectives. From the labor and industrial relations perspective, quite interesting. The minimum wage issue, the quagmire, the negotiation came to conclusion, and the president signed 70,000 into law. We had strikes, threat of strikes, mass action. As we still crying because of the circumstance and the situation of the Nigerian university, public university. I think toward the end of the year, the industrial relations space seems to calm down a bit, since we all left the trenches of the negotiation of national minimum wage and moved to actual implementation. So for us in the private sector, it was quite a bit easy because most of us are paying beyond the 70,000. So, and the conversation about consequential adjustment wasn't really a big issue for us in the private sector. So ending the year at the industrial relations space is peaceful. I don't want to call it peace of the grave, but for now I think it's peaceful. We are building collaboration and consensus across stakeholders, employers, the union, and the critical institutions that are created to manage the industrial relations space. The high point will be probably the appointment of a new minister at long last. And we hope his calmness and experience will help him to navigate the torrid space. At the business level, I think it's still a bit challenging. We are still smarting from the effect of the reforms. Regulatory issues still remain very fundamental. While the government is trying its best at the executive level to create an environment that is conducive for private sector to thrive, you see, have regulators and regulatory authorities still constituting themselves to undertakers, as we call it, undertakers of organized businesses. So that remains a challenge. The tax reform issue.
We'll still get there. We'll still get there.
So those are issues. Those are live issues.
What would be your expectation? What's the expectation of organized private sector for the year 2025?
For 2025, we believe government should deepen engagement. Engagement. Regulatory authorities, some of them should be called to order, because we also will be more vocal in our engagement, because there is a limit to which somebody can squeeze you. At a point, if you are pushed to the wall, you start reacting. So we're more engaging and more vocal on the activities of the regulatory authorities. So we expect regulation and regulatory authorities to actually promote and enhance businesses. We also expect that the fruits of the reforms, the fruit of the liberalization of the forex, the foreign exchange, will also start coming to bear. We hope that the true effect of the Dangote refinery, the true benefit of Dangote refinery and the Port Harcourt refinery, and hopefully if either the Kaduna or Warri refineries also comes on board, we hope that the effect, we'll start feeling the effect in the context of reduced, if not absolute reduction in prices, but that should create some level, reduce the pressure on forex, because if we are not importing fuel and subsidy is removed, then the pressure on forex should reduce, which should also translate to a stronger naira, to some extent. And lastly, among many others, we also expect government deepened support for the real sector, the manufacturing and the productive sector, because we need to produce what we eat, we need to produce what we wear, we need to produce what we use. But that's the only way we can be competitive within the context of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. If not, the rigmarole might just continue.
Okay. Back to the issue of tax reform. It was one big issue in the year 2024,
Absolutely.
especially towards the end of the quarter. Many people have had their view about the tax reform. But first, have you read the document?
Yeah, we've substantially read the document.
And what is the position of organized private sector towards this development?
Substantially, and I'm picking my words, substantially, the organized private sector supports the tax reforms. We are part of the committee. The OPS, Organized Private Sector of Nigeria, was represented, or is being represented by the current OPS Secretariat, who is the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. So the consultation that went on, we were part of those consultations. It's quite funny when people say there was no consultation. And everybody's attitude, most stakeholders' attitude to the engagement was a bit pedestrian. And when the reality of the reform is now, the bill is coming, then people started waking up and said they were not consulted. But there was consultation that was done, and I see ongoing consultation. While we have a bit of our reservation within the context of some implementation, the framework for implementation of the reform, the tax reform itself, but substantially it doesn't affect the issues that the reform is meant to address. The issue of multiplicity of taxes, the issue of actually getting those to pay tax to pay, efficiency of tax collection. So fundamentally, it doesn't, our concern doesn't negate the benefits of the reform itself. And that's what informed the private sector position to a large extent. Look, laws, there's no law that is perfect, absolutely perfect. And if there are concerns, then let those concerns be dealt with either at the public hearing, or we can all call for amendments. There can be amendments.
So are you saying that as employers of labor, you are 100% comfortable with the tax reform?
Comfortable with the tax reforms, comfortable with the ongoing engagement that has been done, comfortable with the ongoing engagement that is still being done on a regular basis, and comfortable with the fact that even the committee have said it is not an absolutely perfect document, but there is still provision for amendment. And there's provision for, if you have any specific, not this generic comments that we've had, anybody that have specific issues on elements or sections of the law, should come up and raise those specific issues, and those issues will be addressed. People have mentioned the issue of it has some religious connotation. Look, what exactly is the religious connotation? People ask if we deprive some state of income. In what context will it deprive states of income? So I've said, so many balkanization or demonization of the document, which we think is not good for. It's not good for growth. It's not good for development. It's not good for our country on the long run. We cannot, and this is very important, we cannot continue to feed the cause of our dilemma. And we are complaining about the effects. We don't want to change. We don't want things to change. And we are complaining of where we currently are currently. So for us, it might be painful. It might require all of us to adjust significantly. It might force the states to also be much more innovative and productive in the context of administration. But for the private sector, which is the real engine of the growth of the development, I think the components that affects us in the context of multiplicity of taxes, burdensome operational efficiency with the context of tax administration, and those critical issues that it will resolve, I think it has a quantum benefit for us. And that informed our position. Suffice to say that while we have our concerns, those concerns are also being channeled to the appropriate authorities so that they can have a look, or they can be guided when we get to the point of implementation.
All right, good to know that. However, going back to the fact that organized private sector has a lot to do with the economy in terms of its contribution and what it brings to the table. In the year 2025, what will be your expectations towards engagement with relevant stakeholders to ensure that organized private sector actually participates effectively?
First, I think the Honorable Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment said something a few weeks ago about the need for deepened collaboration, I think, which is going to be the currency, the oil to drive this economy moving forward. The need for deepened collaboration between all stakeholders. We're working actively with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. Our Excellency Dr. Jumoke has always been open to engagement, even when she was at PEBEC. The new Minister for Labor and Employment is also bringing another dynamics and verve to the engagement. And fortunately for us, we'll also be having, as you are aware, the third National Labor Adjudication and Arbitration
We'll
Forum.
get to that.
So those platforms are platforms that we have deliberately created to influence the economy, as it were. The risk sector must be productive. The risk sector's productive capacity must be harnessed. Because that is the panacea to the unemployment rate that we keep talking about. Nobody will create jobs in this country except the private sector to a large extent. So we must get the private sector working so that they can create jobs, so that they can contribute to national development, as it were. As the private sector pays its tax, government makes revenue. As they employ more people, those individuals that they employ, we also pay personal income tax. So getting the private sector to be active and productive is one of the fastest ways to get this economy back into a growth trajectory.
Okay. Somehow you seem to preempt me. We are all aware, or various stakeholders are aware of the annual NECA adjudication and arbitration forum. Can you bring us up to speed on what should be the expectations? I'm aware that it's happening in February.
Absolutely.
How much of the stakeholders are you bringing on the table for this?
For us, I think it's one of our definitive contribution to the ecosystem for the labor and industrial relations. The closest to it, the closest to it that you will have said is the closest to it, is the National Labor Advisory Council, which has been moribund. And in the absence of the NLAC, there's no platform where stakeholders in this ecosystem can actually gather to address issues that concern us. NECA came up with the National Labor Adjudication and Arbitration Forum. And we also want to commend the National Industrial Court for its support and the value they saw, the president of the NIC saw in that platform, because he's also a key player in the International Labor Organization. So the forum for us will bring everybody in the ecosystem. The employers, the NSCTUC, the institutions of labor administration, led by the Ministry of Labor, the Industrial Arbitration Panel, Michael Imodu National Institute, the justices of the national, everybody in that ecosystem. I think for us, everybody has been invited. The diplomatic corps has been invited. Fortunately for us, we will also be having the Director General of the International Labor Organization coming to lend his voice to the conversation about labor administration in Nigeria, and also reinforce the importance of Nigeria in the global community. Sometimes we underestimate our strength in that global forum. And there's no better DG to come than the Director General of the oldest United Nations agency, that's the International Labor Organization. So we're having the complement of all individuals, that is who in Nigeria, in Africa, and at the global level, both joining physically and joining online also, so that we can continue to shape the conversation concerning labor and industrial relations in this country. Suffice to say, the last chairman of the ILO governing body was actually Nigerian, the Nigerian ambassador to Switzerland. So we didn't maximize as a country is sitting on that seat for 1 year. It was like we never existed. I think the conversation should start changing so that we can stake our claim to those very critical United Nations agency organs, basically.
Okay, finally, while we have high hopes, maybe renewed hopes in the organized private sector And also in various other tripartite that constitute the industrial relations. While we have this hope, what would be your message to the federal government and relevant stakeholders towards ensuring that they're able to create more jobs for Nigerian youth? And I wouldn't know if there's any policy that needs to be checked, probably to encourage empowerment for more small, medium-scale businesses to thrive.
You know, why government has the prerogative to select its priorities, and sometimes there might be priority for revenue generation, there might be priority for tightening the fiscal or monetary policy regime. But we believe strongly that engaging the private sector, the real organized private sector, on what are the likely negative effects of these policies on your operations, I think we go a long way. You know, we cannot in one breath be creating an environment that is positive, that can enable businesses, and some other agencies or organs of the same government are creating bottlenecks for the same private sector not to thrive. You know, when a business leaves Nigeria, and that is the unfortunate thing, when a business leaves Nigeria, we look at it as one business leaving Nigeria. Let me give you an instance, a very real experience. Late last year, 2024, a Lagos State agency went around and they are putting sealed on the premises of 3 multinationals. You know, it takes a very irrational individual to go to the premises of a manufacturing company that employs thousands, and you are placing sealed on it. They are not selling drugs. They are not manufacturing illicit arms just because you feel that they are not living up to the regulation that is already in contention. You went there and you put sealed, not minding the consequential effect of a sealed multinational or a local company that employs the mass of Nigerians. The PEBEC Regulatory Forum was inaugurated by the Vice President earlier in 2024, and we think that many of these regulators should be reining so that their key performance indicator should actually be how many businesses have they facilitated within the context of a quarter, a year. And those would be the key parameters, not how many businesses were we able to drive out of existence because you are thirsty for revenue. I think those patterns should stop in 2025.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having us once again, and Happy New Year once again.
I wish you the same.
Thank you.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.